Just like to preface this episode of the You're Not Alone podcast just to say, unfortunately, the sound quality might be a little bit worse than previous episodes. Accidentally, I recorded off of my computer microphone instead of my actual microphone, but I promise you, the episode is still as helpful as ever. So, apologies again, but I hope you enjoy. The following podcast contains dark themes and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Jake Thompson, and I've been suffering with depression and anxiety for 5 years, and later have been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. With this series of podcasts, I intend to share my thoughts and experiences throughout my journey, to remind people who think like me that they aren't different for feeling negative emotions, that other people think and feel like them. Welcome to the You're Not Alone podcast. I grew up and lived in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates till I was 18 years old. I went to school there. I was born in the neighbouring city of Sharjah. I went to sixth form in Dubai and I've met some amazing friends. But then, of course, it was time to leave. It was time to go to university, to go to England and study at the University of Portsmouth, which I got accepted to. Even though I am English, and every summer since I was born, we went to England for a summer holiday and spent time with my family and really got to know the town that they're all from, Eastbourne, which I'm also from, and explored various parts of England, mainly in the south where other family members are. Not much, but we saw a bit. Despite being from England, moving there was a complete and utter culture shock. And the whole university lifestyle and independent lifestyle obviously is something everyone has to get used to. But with the added culture shock, it was very difficult to adjust to this new way of life. During sixth form, I started to get symptoms of depression and anxiety. I wasn't aware of this, but that's what was happening inside my head. And the whole situation and dramatic change really affected me and increased so many symptoms of depression and anxiety and really exploded them into my everyday life. And more symptoms of depression started to affect me. It was a very challenging adjustment period. Moving to a new country, being away from my parents, being away from my family, being away from my friends. Being the new kid again in a new city, having to be independent, whilst juggling these low emotions that I wasn't aware was sinking me lower and lower. Being away from your parents is something everyone has to go through, but it was difficult not being able to see them like on a weekend like other kids could, or call them or message them whenever I could because of time zones and they'd have work. And there are a lot of people out there who have worse situations than me, and I'm not trying to sound ungrateful. I'm so lucky that my parents gave me this opportunity and I could still talk to them and stuff, but I just want to express for myself how difficult it was for me. But I am aware that I'm still very lucky for the life that I've led, and I want people to be aware of that. Before I continue, there are lots of people out there who can't go to university, or go to university and they can't even communicate with their family, and I want people to know that I am grateful. So yeah, my parents were far away, who I loved very much. My family were an hour and a half train away, but it's not as easy as it is to go see them. It was the first time I was dealing with money myself, so I had a lot to learn about the practicalities of saving and spending. So sometimes I simply wouldn't have the money to be able to go see them, and I wouldn't want to ask for money because I don't want to take people's money. I'm not like that, and it would get me too anxious to even ask. And I had studies, and I had, you know, I needed to adjust to this life, so I couldn't see them as much as I had maybe wanted to. And I had all my friends scattered around the country in loads of faraway places. You know, I think all the places they were minimum 3 hour trains, and they're quite expensive. The majority of the time I couldn't afford to see them, and they were quite long distance, but that wasn't what was stopping me. As I continued the year, I got really depressed and anxious about everything. And I started to isolate myself from people. I stopped talking to my housemates as much, to my friends as much, and I would essentially just keep myself in my room all day and just watch telly. I wouldn't get out of bed. I would only go outside to get myself food, not even healthy food, food that I knew was cheap enough for me to live on. And I just felt trapped, in a sense, in a dark room, and let the depression take a voice within me, and started to really affect my self-esteem. And I've never had high self-esteem. I've always, to a degree, been extremely critical and judgmental to myself. But since having depressive and anxious thoughts, it became a disliking, and then at a time a hatred of myself. Very disapproving to everything that I would do. And it wasn't just me who I thought didn't like me, it was everyone else. I became trapped and isolated. Part of the justification was because I thought people hated me. I thought I was a nothing human being, and therefore no one had an opinion of me apart from a disliking, a very strong disliking. And I thought everyone thought that. Strangers, new friends, old friends, best friends, family, I thought people didn't like me. There was no evidence at all to suggest that they did. They didn't. But the depression doesn't give you facts. It bombards you with these feelings that take away any sort of logic and just make you believe. It's like you're being brainwashed. So I couldn't think of anything but that. If someone gave a nice gesture to me, that's not the thing that my brain would allow me to remember. It'd be the time when I think they might have looked at me different. And then I'd be attacked by a thought of, you know why he looked at you like that? Because he doesn't like you. Because that thing you did. Remember that thing you did? When you accidentally stepped on his shoe and his foot came out the shoe and he had to put it back on and he said, what the hell? He hates you now. And everyone hates you. And he told loads of people that. So now they all hate you, and it's going to get bigger and bigger until everyone in the world hates you. It was alarming how truthful I thought that was the case. I completely shut myself out from lots of things. And then I started to shut myself out from people. And when people would start to reach out, I would just get way too anxious and I couldn't talk to them. And that was really the start of something that I call messaging anxiety. Now, I really don't like that I'm about to say these two words because I think they're so cringeworthy and make me sound like an old fuddy duddy. And using the word fuddy duddy makes me sound like an old fuddy duddy anyway. Anyway, we live in a digital age. Don't know why I had to do inverted commas on my hands, but whatever. You can't see that. We're living in a time where messaging is a important form of communication. It's a very easy and simplistic and useful form of communication which has greatly helped the world. The messaging conversation has as much weight, influence, and importance as a normal conversation, in the fact that it's possibly used as much because we spend so much time on technology, because it's brilliant. We're allowed to talk with people across the world in an easy and inexpensive way, with messaging, with Facebook Messenger, with WhatsApp, with Instagram DMs, Twitter TMs, etc., 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 etc. You know, we can hold a conversation with anyone, and it's magnificent, and it's easy. That's the thing. It's easy. Back in the day, you had like a landline, for example, just one landline, one phone, and the whole family would use it. You want to call your mate? Well, you can't right now because mum's on the phone to her sister. You want to organise something? It's difficult to. Phones and technology make the world so much smaller in an amazing way. And now more than ever, we're using messaging, we're using talking to people, using technology because we can't see anyone because of quarantine. That's kind of why I wanted to make this episode, because there's going to be a lot of messages flying around and maybe a lot of messages sent towards you, and you might feel overwhelmed by people getting in touch. And I know in the past I have felt quite overwhelmed too by messaging. Messaging anxiety is essentially when you get a message on whatever social media platform from, it could be a friend, could be from anyone, could be an email from school, it could be something important, or it could be a friend, it could be anything. It's essentially just communication sent to you. It's a feeling of your anxiety taking over. You're fearful of what's behind the message. Maybe you don't know the full message. Maybe it's half a little bit, or maybe you see all of it. there's so many things that could be rushing through my head at this point, depending on the scenario. For example, it's difficult to understand tone on some messages. So simply, I could be reading the tone in a way that makes it sound like they're annoyed at me. So I'm getting anxious thinking that, oh my god, this person's annoyed with me, when maybe they're actually not. But I am uncontrollably frozen and paralyzed in fear. And I just can't bring myself to open this message because I don't want someone to be angry at me, and I'm scared of what the outcome might be. Another example could be, I think this person doesn't like me. Like, my friends in first year would message me trying to get me to visit them in university, and I would avoid the messages because I thought that they didn't like me. I truly thought that, and I thought I was too depressed and weird to see them, so I would avoid their messages and avoid hanging out, which made it look like I was avoiding them, even though I didn't want to. With that, it makes the situation worse and jeopardizes me even more, which depression wants. Essentially, I think message anxiety is the fear of what the other person is trying to communicate to you. It's the fear that it might be something bad. It might be a message for someone who dislikes you. And it's the fear of letting them down even further with messaging back. It's the fear of you further making them dislike you even more with your horribleness. Because that's what I thought. I thought I was horrible. There's so many different reasons why people can experience messaging anxiety. But those are my experiences why I felt like I couldn't open a message from anyone. But it does have consequences. I nearly lost an amazing friendship because of messaging anxiety. And also, I've put lots of friendships in jeopardy because of my messaging anxiety. It comes across like you don't want to get in contact with them. Like you're giving them a cold shoulder. Like you don't want to be friends anymore because you're leaving them on red. You're not answering the questions, or you're answering a week's time and you keep doing that. That's the problem with anyone that feels anxious around this form of communication. You know that what you're doing and not answering is communicating this way, but it's almost like you're frozen. You can't do anything else because you're so scared to open this message. There's one example that I want to talk about before I get into my advice and more into messaging anxiety. I had a very, very close friend of mine, one of my closest. We used to hang out all the time in school. There was a time when I went to his house every single weekend with a bunch of other of my friends. And, we've been on holiday together. We've done loads of great things. But when university sort of started, and in first year we would Skype with two of my other friends, and we always had a great time. But maybe during the second and third year, when he would message me, especially in second year, that was when my depression was at its worst. And I was absolutely terrible at getting back to people with messages, so many people. And this kind of been going on for a trend for a few years. I just would find it incredibly difficult to get back to certain people's messages. And he messaged me and said, look, I want to be friends with you. We've got a great friendship, but I can't be the one putting in all the effort. I can't be the one that's just messaging. You've got to put some effort into it. I know that's harsh to say, but it's the truth. If you want to keep this friendship going, the ball's in your court. And that really woke me up. I knew the consequences of doing it, but my anxiety and my depression would stop me from ever acting on it. But seeing what could be if I let the anxiety and depression take over me is a loss of a friendship that means the absolute world to me. I couldn't do that. I have to fight with every ounce in my body to reject the awful, awful things that are going on in my head so I could retain this amazing, amazing friendship. And yeah, I'm still not perfect at it, and we both discussed that. But he knows that I'm trying to be better, and I'm getting better. And I'm trying so hard to get better with messaging with loads of people because I know it's the depression telling you not to message people and knowing that it's going to result in an end of friendship, and it's getting you to that point where you've lost a friend and you're more alone. And then the depression is pleased with its work. That's what the depression's like. Everyone gets anxious. It's a normal human feeling. But with messaging anxiety, and I know that someone who can relate to it, I know you know this as well. You feel worse the longer you leave that message. You do. Because the longer that you've left it unread, the more you think that person dislikes you for not answering that message. Or the longer you leave it unread, the longer you think how rude you're being. It doesn't help. Yeah, and you know it doesn't. You've got to push through this and know that that person is messaging you for a reason that isn't negative. And if it is negative, it's not anything to do with your person. It's not about any disliking to yourself. It's just a message. It has no power over you. Imagine it's a kind of conversation you're comfortable with. Because really, that's all it is. It's a conversation. Imagine it in any way you feel makes this scenario easier. Remind yourself that it's just a person, and you're a person too, and you can push through that anxiety and realize that it's the depression that's stopping you from wanting to communicate. It's the depression making you believe that this person has any judgment or criticism towards you. It's the depression trying to play its filthy game. Be open and honest with yourself and with others, explaining that you find it difficult with messaging. When my friend opened up to me and said, look, the ball's in your court if you want to keep the friendship, I explained to them, I know that what I'm doing is wrong. I know I'm bad at messaging. And I explained to him why. It's because I felt anxious, because I felt like people didn't like me. Being honest and open about why you feel anxious with messaging certain people, with messaging in general, can help bring out the fear and make you analyze it and realize, why do I do this? And try and work on it. You can try and work on it in that way. Open yourself up and see why you get this way. Honesty is honestly the best. And if it's been a while, people will understand why you couldn't do it or you couldn't message. People are understanding. I know it's difficult to believe that, but people are. take this time now to improve on your answering of messages and realise that people care about you and just want to be in touch with you, especially during this time. Lots of people worried about you because this is a worrying time. Be honest and open with them and know that they're reaching out. If you know that someone out there takes a long time to message or they read and they don't respond, just try and be patient and understanding and knowing that there might be something going on here. It might not be as simple as they're being rude and they don't want to talk. There could be something underneath the surface. Try to help them. Try to go, look, if you're anxious around messaging, we can communicate in a different way, or you could let me know when you're feeling up to talking. Just communicate with them and make them understand that you're there for them. That's something that I'm really trying to work on, my message anxiety. If you've got any tips, please let me know. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye. If you or anyone you know experience similar thoughts and feelings to the ones shared in this podcast, please contact your GP. Everyone's happiness and health is important. I would just like to thank my good friend Omar Addis for making the music for this episode. You can find his music on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Music. Please make sure to give it a listen. And thank you all so much for listening. I love you all.